Welcome back, listeners, to a new episode of The New Standard. And my co host, Neil Coulong, is on assignment. He's on assignment looking for Antonio Brown's self respect and pride. That's what he's doing. So, Neil, big up to Neil, may be gone for a significant amount of time because there is no way I believe he can find Antonio Brown's self respect anywhere on the globe. But next week, when we do a show, we will have Neil back, and hopefully, within a briefcase, he will have his self respect and his pride. He will find it somewhere on the planet in the globe. But with that, I want to welcome you guys back to the experience. The New Standard, as always, is hosted by yours truly, Lance Williams. Again, Neil is on assignment. And I want to dedicate this show to my daughter, who is turning 21 this week, celebrating her 21st birthday. So big up to my daughter, Amiel Rebecca Williams. Love you. And so big up to her on this milestone achievement. And again, it's just exciting to come back and talk Steeler football to you. And the title of this particular program, of course, is Are the Steelers Really Super Bowl Contenders? And I want to thank JB, my boy JB, on Twitter. His handle is at Mr. No Followers. My guy JB from Vallejo, who I personally know, who I reached out to give me 5 quantifiable, non-subjective statistics to look at and to answer this question: Are the Steelers really Super Bowl contenders? But before we jump into that, as always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do a search for The New Standard and Lance Williams or Neil Coulong. Also, you can find us anywhere that you get your podcast by doing a search for The New Standard. The first thing I wanted to jump into, before I jump into the question, are the Steelers really Super Bowl contenders? And the reason why I wanted to jump into this question is because Deontay Johnson said a couple of weeks ago, I believe at the start of OTAs, that Mike Tomlin was really big on talking about winning a championship this year in 2023. So I wanted to look into the question: Are the Steelers Super Bowl contenders? Now, I'm going to define a Super Bowl contender as the 4 teams that play in the championship game. But before I jump into that, hold that right there. I want to talk about this rumor about Chase Young. And I want to give my guy, Jeff Hartman, a big shout out. I used to do a show with Jeff over on Behind the Steel Curtain. Big up to Jeff. I forget the name of their new network. And I think Jeff broke the news. He got a rumor from somewhere that the Steelers were interested in Chase Young. Now, big up to Jeff for that and getting that information. Now, I don't think anybody should be surprised that Chase Young would be on the radar of the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. I mean, Mike Tomlin has gushed about Chase Young. You know, there's that famous clip, I think, on NFL Films when he talked about how, I don't want to be as bad to get a guy like you. I mean, he waxed poetic about Chase Young and his ability as a football player. And we all know the connection between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ohio State. I mean, who's arguably the best defensive player on the Steelers? Hayward, Cam, Ohio State. So the Steelers have an affinity for Ohio State players. They have for a long time. They value the program. They value how the players are taught and trained. They value Buckeyes, period. So the Steelers and Mike Tomlin having an interest in Chase Young is about as obvious as the sun is hot. It's probably about as obvious as the Steelers have 6 championships. They wear black and gold. Pittsburgh's in Pennsylvania. It's surrounded by rivers. The Cleveland Browns are terrible. Deshaun Watson does questionable stuff after hours in places of ill repute. So it's about as obvious as all of those things. That's not to downgrade the information that Jeff is bringing to you. It's just that it's obvious. Mike Tomlin thinks Chase Young is a hell of a ball player. I'm sure everybody in the National Football League thinks he's a hell of a ball player, ironically, except for the Washington Commanders. And big up to all Commanders fans. It looks like that owner is going to be no longer the owner pretty soon. And hopefully they can change the name from the Commanders, because the Commanders' name is absolutely terrible. It should have been the Washington Red Tails. It should have been the Red Tails after a squadron of Tuskegee Airmen. And if you don't know who the Tuskegee Airmen are, make sure you look that up. I thought it should have been the Washington Red Tails. I think that would have been a great name. Or they could have kept it as the Washington Football Team. That started sounding pretty good to me after a while anyway. So anyway, big fail with the Washington Commanders. Terrible name. Big up to my guy, Ron Brazil. With that being said, the one team that doesn't seem to appreciate Chase Young is his own team, because they did not extend to him the fifth-year option. And, of course, Chase Young was coming off of a devastating knee injury. And this might be the reason why they may not value a former number 2 overall pick. He's got 9 sacks for his career. In the last 2 years, he's only played 12 games. He has 1.5 sacks, 31 tackles, 31, 2 forced fumbles, no fumble recoveries, no interceptions, 1 pass defense. Now, I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but God damn, you got to look real close at Chase Young to see that beauty. Yikes. Chase Young looks like Floyd Mayweather's. I'm not going to say that. But anyway, big up to my guy, Robert Brown. He knows what I'm talking about. Beauty's got to be in the eye of the beholder. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is, as Steeler fans, man, we hella gullible. We get excited over stuff that means nothing. I mean, I'm talking about it, of course, but I'm coming from a different angle. I mean, all of Steeler Nation was so excited about just the sheer interest that the Steelers had. I mean, guys doing shows. He's going to come in the Steelers, put him in TJ Watt. They're going to have 5,000 sacks. Steelers going to win a Super Bowl. Rah, rah, rah. Shish, boom, bah. Now, I say all of this laughing at the false excitement about Chase Young and us Steeler fans being gullible, falling hook, line, and sinker. And they signed Chase Young. And he has 15 sacks with TJ Watt's 25 sacks. And they're the best sack tandem in the history of football. Watch that happen. And so everybody can say, see, Lance, you were wrong. Chase Young is the man. Chase Young is the man. But I just wanted to jump into that real quick before I jumped into the main topic of the program is, are the Steelers really Super Bowl contenders? Now, I'm defining a Super Bowl contender simply as the 4 teams that competed in the championship games last year. That's the Chiefs and the Bengals on the AFC side, the Eagles and the 49ers, albeit the 49ers played a quarter. Their quarterback room by the time they got to that game was just yikes. Be it as it may, those are the 4 teams in both conferences: Chiefs, Bengals, Eagles, 49ers. And big up to my guy, JB, at Mr. No Followers. Big up to JB at Mr. No Followers on Twitter. He is a fantastic Twitter read. He is absolutely hilarious. He's knowledgeable. He's snarky. He stands by his opinions. He's made the pilgrimage, the Mecca, multiple times. That's right. Mecca is the north side. My home, my neighborhood, Manchester, the north side, 15233. He has made the trip. So big up to my guy, JB, at Mr. No Followers on Twitter, my guy. So he gave me 5 characteristics, and we went back and forth a little bit on how he wanted to pick 5 characteristics that are not subjective. 5 stats, characteristic stats, meaning he didn't want to identify a stat like pressures or like hurries, which could be subjective. You know, who defines a hurry a certain way could be different from somebody how they define a pressure, or it could be different the way PFF says it, or if Pro Football Focus says it. It could all be a little bit different. So he gave me, so I said, okay, I feel you. I feel you. Give me 5 statistics that don't fall in that category of being subjective to the eye, that these are hardcore stats that are easily measurable and that are key and critical to winning. And the 5 stats are as follows, and we're going to talk about them in order: red zone efficiency, touchdown to interception ratio, turnover margin, big plays, that's offensive plays of 20 yards or more, and forced fumbles. Starting at red zone efficiency, and we're going to start from the AFC to the NFC. The Chiefs, in terms of their red zone efficiency, and that's scoring touchdowns, not kicking field goals. The Chiefs converted 69% of their red zone trips into touchdowns, which ranks second in the National Football League. The Bengals converted 65%, which ranked 5th. The Eagles converted 67.8, which ranked 3rd. And the 49ers converted 53.9, which ranked 18th. Now, the reason the Niners were so low, Jimmy Garoppolo, the pretty guy, got hurt. They played Brock Purdy, but it was a testament to their coaching and their roster that even with a guy who was the last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, they still beat Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs and went to the NFC Championship game. Still beat, I believe, Dak Prescott again with Brock Purdy. But when you look at the Chiefs, Bengals, and Eagles ranking 2, 5, and 3, what that says is, and the Steelers ranked 23rd, converting only 52%. So that means if you're going to be a contender, not only do you have to get red zone trips, you've got to convert red zone trips. You've got to score touchdowns. You've got to score 6 points. You can't come away with 3 points. And one thing, when you look at this Pittsburgh Steelers team last year, they struggled scoring points. I believe they scored about 18.5 points per game. So if you're talking about being a Super Bowl contender, not only do you have to have a significant spike in points per game next year, you have to be much more efficient in the red zone. Unless your roster is absolutely ridiculous across the board like the 49ers was, you're not going to survive and be a true contender for a Super Bowl if you're only converting 23 or you're ranked 23rd. And so the question going into the 2023 season is, how much can the Steelers gain in terms of red zone efficiency? Right now, when you're looking at football, the Chiefs are the standard. They are the offensive standard in football. And you're talking about a 17% difference between the Steelers and the Chiefs in red zone efficiency. Next is touchdown to interception ratio. Easy. You simply divide touchdowns by interceptions to get a number. Normally, when I was growing up, 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio was considered pretty good. 2.5 was really good. 3-to-1 was elite, meaning if you threw 30 touchdowns, you only threw 10 interceptions. Now, when you look at the Chiefs, in terms of touchdown to interception ratio, Patrick Mahomes ranked 4th at 3.4. Joe Burrow ranked ninth at 2.9. The Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts, 3.7, ranked third. And Brock Purdy, even though he did not have many touchdown passes, ranked fifth at 3.3. Kenny Pickett was a 0.8. It was less than one, which meant he threw more interceptions than he did touchdown passes. And the reason why, and I'm so glad that JB brought up this stat, is the days of winning a Super Bowl without great caliber quarterback play is over. I mean, you look at the AFC is absolutely stacked with quarterbacks. But in terms of touchdown to interception ratio, not only is the number 7 too low, and Kenny played 13 games. I mean, Kenny threw the ball 389 times. He did almost throw for 2,500 yards. So I don't want to hear, oh, he was a rookie. He only threw 7 touchdown passes and threw 9 interceptions. That has to improve for them to compete, and for me to see them as legitimate Super Bowl contenders. That ratio has to be like 3-1. And I'm talking, it has to be 25 plus touchdown passes. I would like to see Kenny Pickett, that touchdown passing number in the 30s, 30 a game, 10 picks, just to keep it round and easy to think about when you're listening. That has to significantly improve. I mean, the numbers, when you compare, the numbers are just astonishing. I mean, he threw 7 touchdown passes in 13 starts. I'm just giving you the numbers. That ain't good. I don't know how else to say it, but that's not good. Another stat we jumped into was turnover margin. And that's plus minus. And the Steelers were a +4, which ranked 9th. The Chiefs were -3, which ranked 23rd. The Bengals were a +6, which ranked 6th. The Eagles were a +8, which ranked 3rd. And the 49ers were +13, which ranked 1st. So the remedy, although the Steelers were pretty good in this category, they needed more turnovers and they needed to get more extra possessions to help an offense that I thought struggled, largely because of the coordinator and the fact that when you coupled the coordinator with a rookie quarterback and you had inconsistent offensive line play, I mean, I could keep saying and we saw that I think their level, their skill players, to me, in my opinion, aren't as good as even some of their division rivals like the Bengals. So, for the Steelers to have scored more points last year, their turnover margin was going to have to be significantly better. And the only reason why the Chiefs won the Super Bowl is because of the next stat. They led the National Football League in big plays with 73. If you get 73 big plays, you can offset having a negative turnover margin. So when you look at the Steelers, I mean, the one thing that they're going to have to do, in my opinion, to get this scoring average from 18 to roughly around 25 is they're going to have to get extra possessions. You still have an inexperienced quarterback and you have an offensive line in flux. That defense is going to have to play outstanding and give that offense extra possessions consistently throughout the entire year. I mean, that's what the 49ers did with Brock Purdy. They gave Brock Purdy a ton of extra possessions, and they were efficient when you look at their red zone efficiency when they got the possessions. I mean, they ranked 18th, but that's pretty good considering you were starting a guy that was the last pick in the National Football League draft. So, and I love the way that JB picked these stats because these stats, they flow together. And when I look at these stats, as we switch to big plays, it gets back to the controversial quote, I'm going to just say and let it hang there. That's offense wins championships. My dad would kill me if he heard me say that, but I'm going to say it again. Offense wins championships. Yes, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it loud. Offense wins championships, and I'm proud. Say it loud. Offense wins championships. That's my James Brown imitation. Now, when we go to big plays, the Steelers have 44, which ranked 23rd. The Chiefs had 73. They had 30 more big plays than the Steelers, which ranked first. The Bengals had 54, which ranked 12th. The Eagles had 62, which ranked second. And the 49ers had 56, which ranked 16th. Now, I think something's becoming very obvious when you look at these stats, is that the Chiefs were outstanding on the offensive side of football, and the Eagles were as well. Red zone efficiency, Chiefs second, Eagles third. Touchdown interception ratio from the quarterback, Chiefs ranked fourth, Eagles third. Big plays, Chiefs first, Eagles second. I mean, what we're seeing is if the Steelers are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, they have to be efficient in the red zone. Their quarterback, as a measure of TDs to interceptions, has to be outstanding, particularly in a division where more than likely he is probably, I'm just, hedging my bet here, the worst quarterback in the division. Let me say that, the worst quarterback in the division. He's even, but it's just that the division is stacked at quarterback. You got Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson. So I think it's reasonable to think that in his second year, Kitty's the worst quarterback. So when you look at the Chiefs and you look at the Eagles particularly, very good in the red zone, very efficient. Very good quarterback play. You can argue that Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFC. Generate big plays on offense. Now the Chiefs turn it over, but they offset it by getting 73 big plays. Now in terms of forced fumbles, and that's a possession game. That's a possession. How many possessions you're going to get? How many possessions are you going to take away? You're a team that struggles to score, and that needs to keep the game and the score low. You got to take away possessions, and you got to get extra possessions because you don't have an explosive offense that scores a ton of points. And so when you look at these metrics, the Steelers 23rd in red zone efficiency. Kenny Pickett was 34th in touchdown to interception ratio. Turnover margin, Steelers 9. Big plays, they ranked 23rd. Forced fumbles, they ranked 30th. So when you look at the Steelers in terms of these metrics, for me to consider them a Super Bowl contender, it has to look more like the Bengals, who in the respective categories rank 5th, 9th, 6th, 12th, and 11th. And they're probably looking at that mix and saying, we can get more than 54 big plays. And that's probably because Jamar Chase missed some games last year. We have the best quarterback in the division. We absolutely think we can get some big plays. And we play situational football very well on defense. You look at the Eagles. That's why the Eagles right now, when you look at their roster, you look what they did in the draft, and you look at their statistical mix of these categories, again, of red zone efficiency, TD to interception ratio, turnover margin, big plays, and forced fumbles, they rank third, second, and seventh. The only team that probably beat them in the Super Bowl is a team that beat them in the Super Bowl. Is a team like the Chiefs. When your offense has to make plays, it can make plays. Because when you're going up against some of these high-powered offenses, the level of variance in defensive performance is just too high. You have to be able to score a bunch of points. That's why I love the fact that JB pointed out these stats. because these stats are part of the long equation into how are you going to score points. Now, when I look at the Steelers, I think it's great early in training camp to say that they're a contender. I mean, but honestly, I mean, when I look at some of their numbers, I mean, I think the statistical jumps, it's not realistic. I'm not saying they're not going to be a good football team, but I think and I'm not saying that Mike Tomlin should not be trying to encourage his football team to win a Super Bowl. I don't think you come out as the Steelers head coach and come out and say, I don't think we're Super Bowl contenders. I don't think that's just how Steelers move. I don't think that's how you should move as a leader of a football team. Everything is possible. Anything can happen. We're talking about likelihoods and probabilities. The jump that they would have to take offensively, there is no way they can play that well defensively to offset it. No way, in my opinion. When I look at the Steelers roster, I look at where they're starting from. We used to say that they were sexy tanking, Neil and myself, the last few years. We got to come up with another term as to identify and classify this season. They're not sexy tanking. I mean, they made too many moves in free agency. I think they're a couple years out still. You know, if I were talking about this year and the Steelers averaged 24 a game, ranked top 10 in the red zone, TD to interception ratio looked more like Jalen Hurts. Maybe not Jalen Hurts because it was 3.7, which is ridiculous. And maybe it looked like 2.5. Big plays. They rank about 11th in the National Football League. They can increase their big plays by another 10, another 12. Maybe they could get 56 big plays. Maybe they could get 60 big plays. Increase it by another 16 big plays. If I was looking at that statistical mix from last year, if it was the 2022 season and they did that, I would be speaking much more glowingly about the Steelers going into the 23 season. I think it's just a lot to ask for a second-year quarterback to make the type of offensive jump that they're going to need to make to compete for a Super Bowl. I think the Steelers can compete for a playoff spot, maybe a 6 seed, 7 seed. They're in a tough division. I think they play a very favorable schedule. I've picked them to win 11 games. I mean, that's probably, the sun always shines in Philadelphia in me, or the sun always shines in Manchester on Pennsylvania Avenue. But I don't know. I just, maybe, and we have a long way till the season starts. But I wanted to talk about this just because of that quote from Deontay Johnson talking about Tomlin talking about Super Bowl so aggressively in training camp. And, they still, I think they're a little ways away. Is it reasonable that they can go from 9 wins to 11? Yes. They play a lot of young quarterbacks. I think they're going to be really good defensively. Super Bowl contender, I think that's a little premature. I just think looking at them right now on the offensive side of football, I just don't think they're quite there yet. I'm not saying that they can't be. I'm saying to make the jump that they need to make offensively, particularly when you look at the metrics that we looked at, I just don't think that's a realistic jump. And I think it's improbable. I think they're going to be highly competitive. They're going to be in a lot of games, but that's different from competing from a Super Bowl in being a Super Bowl contender. But with that, I want to thank you guys for hopping in the program. Thank you, JB, Mr. No Followers. Holla at your boy, Big Swab Lance Williams. I am out. I'm looking for Neil. Neil's looking for Antonio Brown's self-respect. Hopefully he finds it. I don't know if he will. But we're out of here. We're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Go Steelers.